Unsurprisingly, the sport that emerged in colonial times mostly reflected the culture of British migrants. The most popular activities were horse riding, boxing, and the cruel practice of cockfighting, where two roosters fought to the death. Gambling was a part of these events, and people were able to bet on the outcome of the competitions. Although a handful of sports existed, society's main focus remained on survival, and sport as we know it today was very much in its infancy. As sport developed and grew, so did the opportunity for leisure and sport activities. During the early years of the 19th century, the basis of any contest was British virtues, specifically manliness and adherence to Christianity. Sport was perceived as being a means of testing a man's physical abilities and his adherence to Christianity while he was competing. The origin of rivalry in sport was the contention that existed between newly landed migrants and the Australian-born white people, and the rivalry continues in the form of very strong competition that exists between Australia and England today. By the mid-1850s, team sports had become prevalent. Cricket and football had been brought over by British migrants, and the first recorded cricket match was played in 1832 in Sydney. Cricket matches were being played as friendlies in England, whereas competitive matches were being played in Australia in the form of games between various Sydney suburbs. The importance that was placed on competition could even be seen in the beginnings of Australian sport. A significant milestone in Australian sport was the emergence of Australian football, a uniquely Australian game. Developed in 1859, it constituted a branching away from British influences. There was a clear break from the traditional sports that had been brought out by the British migrants. Australian sporting identity expanded when the first Melbourne Cup was run in 1861. 17 horses competed in the first Cup, racing for a prize of £170, which was Australia's currency at the time, and a gold watch for the jockey. Although our sporting identity was becoming uniquely Australian, immigration was the dominant factor in the development of sport. Migrants came from widespread parts of Europe and brought their nationality popular sports, including tennis, athletics and cycling, and those sports soon became part of the Australian lifestyle. International sporting competitions were introduced in Australia during the second half of the 19th century. An Aboriginal cricket team toured England in 1867 and 1868, and the first cricket match between Australia and England was held in Australia in 1877 in Melbourne. The modern Olympic Games emerged towards the end of the 19th century in 1896. The first Games were held in Athens, and Australia's 2 medals were won by Edwin Teddy Flack. Both were gold for the 800 and the 1500 metre athletic events. Australia has competed in every Summer Olympic Games since, and has been one of the only 3 countries to do so. Australia's sporting identity continued to develop through the first half of the 20th century. Australia continued to participate in international sporting competitions, mainly against England and English colonies, in sports such as cricket and rugby. The country continued to improve its national standing at the Olympic Games by steadily increasing the number of medals and overall ranking. The second half of the 20th century, and specifically the period 1949 to 1966, was a golden era for Australian sport. During that time, Australia had considerable success in a number of sports, and the journey to where the nation's sporting identity is today was finalised. In 1980, because of Australia's importance for Australian identity, the Australian government built the Australian Institute of Sport, the AIS, in Canberra. The sports that the AIS originally targeted were athletics, basketball, football, gymnastics, netball, swimming, tennis and weightlifting. Since the AIS's inception, Australia has enjoyed considerable success in a range of sports. The nation reached a 4th place ranking in the 2000 and the 2004 Summer Olympics, winning 58 and 49 medals respectively. At the Rio 2016 Olympics, Australia slipped to an overall ranking of...
Created using Powtoon.